My name is Sam. Thanks for checking out this video. If you get to the end and liked it, then subscribe, bell notification, give the video a thumbs up. Let's talk about the books that I read this week, because I read a lot. So starting off, I picked up Slay by Brittany Morris. This is a book that I myself don't really feel comfortable giving any sort of critique on the content. So it is set, the main character is one of the few girls in her high school in Washington that she is one of the few people of color. I think she specifies in there that there's 7 people of color in like her whole high school, which it's a city high school. Like it's not like there's like only 10 kids or anything like that. So she has created this world, a virtual world, a game called Slay. So it's her safe space. So you know, she can go there and the people who play there are also black, so that she created this video game where she gets to build a character that looks like her. And there's this interesting, there's a murder committed in sort of relation to the game, and so a bunch of people are trying to find out who the creator of Slay is. It becomes a big news PR thing. And it's really this discussion, I don't even know I should say discussion, because I feel like it shouldn't be a discussion, on like having safe spaces for minorities when we have this bullcrap of like, oh, racism is illegal. We said it's illegal, so it means none of the institutional like racism ever happened. It doesn't exist anymore. And I just can't. So it's a discussion on, is it racist for black people to have spaces for just black people? Is it racist for people who are Chinese to just, I really, like, it kind of bugs me that we have to have this discussion. But I mean, like, in this book, there's like, when it goes on the news, they have discussions. I've heard these pundits say the exact same things on Fox News, that as soon as white people are not allowed, like, aren't given like a privilege, they don't, like, all of a sudden it becomes a problem. They didn't care about the inequality of shit before. But as soon as that is, Fox News has an issue. And creating a safe space for someone who can't go on a video game that has, like, interactive without being called the N-word is not racism. That's giving them a safe space where they're not going to be called the racial slur. Right now, especially right now, giving a safe space to people who are Asian because of all the racism going on. That's not illogical to me. I hate a lot of people in the world. But it's interesting because there's this whole cast of characters that she has in her life, that her mom, and they all kind of fill these just like slightly different roles. I feel like I see an awful lot when we have these discussions come up, whether that's newscasters or like just people in the street that they ask or survey, or the comment section or anything like that. I specifically hate the character's boyfriend, but he is a specific character that I've seen him. So I really liked this whole cast. And I feel like that's all I can really comment on. I liked the cast. I liked the writing. I'm infuriated that the message has to really be, like, discussed, because it just seems, like, logical to me to give people who are just minorities a safe space, even when racism still exists as an institution. In Canada, we're big fans of being like, oh, like, we cool. And then most of Indigenous communities don't have fucking running water on the reserve. So, like... Then I picked up Dark Shores by Danielle Jensen, and oh my god, I loved this so much more than I thought I was going to. I think I only know one person who's read it, and they didn't really like it. So I was like, that's disappointing. And I was like, but I really want to love it. She's a Canadian author. I got it signed because her and Elise Kova did an event last May. So I went down for my birthday, and because I love Elise Kova, and I got her book, and it's signed too. So I was like, I really want to love it. She's an Alberta Canadian author too, which is like, other than like Courtney Summers, I don't really know of anyone else that is like a mainstream published author that lives in this province. So that was really cool. And I knew Dark Skies, the sequel's coming out soon, because I pre-ordered it from my libraries. So I was like, well, okay, maybe I should finally read this. So I finally read it, and oh, it's so good. It definitely takes on this like concept of like the kidnapped, and then the kidnapper, you know, there's like sexual tension going on, and then there's this colonialism. So our main character knows how to get to this like very isolated part of the world that these colonialers, let's just call them England. It's as if England didn't know about India. And so all of a sudden for whatever reasons, this character has to show them how to get to India. And they show up to India, and she's still being used to, like, translate, communicate, all that stuff to these people. They have a budding romance between, like, the guy who's in charge of that and her. And he's doing it on behalf of the British Empire, essentially. And he's like, you know, I see you have these internal strifes. We'll help you beat this bad local guy. And then they start, it's essentially like early manipulation so that when they beat that bad guy, they'll be ready for you to step in as like a power vacuum, right? So it's interesting that it deals with that topic, despite the fact that it does kind of go like Stockholm Syndrome-y with the romance. I kind of really liked it, and I can't quite pinpoint why. It was just really bothering me. I really liked the cast as a whole, though. I thought the concept of going in, and I really think it is interesting because you can see like the inner monologues going in on all these different casts of people who know that they're going in to manipulate, people who know that they're going in to manipulate but are on the other side, and then like people who are like, we know they're manipulating, but we can deal with that after. We need help getting rid of this other bad guy first. So I feel like, again, it's an interesting discussion that we always see whenever that kind of colonialism that colonialism action shows up and happens. So I really loved that. I'm excited for the sequel because it's just like, it just lays like the foundation for like, oh Bish, we're gonna come in and take you over. We're gonna come in. Don't worry though. We'll be good. We're gonna come in and take you over though. So I can't wait to read Dark Skies. And I think the author said it was supposed to be like up to 5 books-ish. So anywhere between 4 and 6 books, I think was the I've seen online. So I'm just going to keep following it. I really like the covers, too. I'm just hoping and praying they don't change it after the second book, because the second book has a cover. Please don't change it after that. Then I read Twisted Fates by Danielle Rollins. This is the sequel to Stolen Time, and I'm not sure, because how it ends, I don't know. I thought this was a duology, but like with how it ends, I'm like, oh, I'm assuming it's a trilogy then, with just everything's kind of sort of like left up in the air. If it's a duology, I think it's a very abrupt ending and you needed like another chapter or two to like do something with. If it's like another book's coming, it was a good ending. But it's a continuation where I don't know that I can explain much of it because it's this entire plot is dependent on what happens at the very, very end of Stolen Times. But we are still jumping between the different time periods. This book focuses a whole lot more on like the actual processes in the past of what has happened when they've done time jumps. So in the past, a professor has tried to do time jumps to go back and edit things, whether that's save people or whatever. But it won't let them do it sometimes. And in the story, characters at some points try to jump back. Or jump forward, and they can never, no matter how many times they do it, how much adjustments they make, something always comes in the way of them trying to either save a person or whatever it may be. And it's trying to figure out why that is and when that is. So I know that when this event's happened, I can't come back to fix it. And as always, it's because like several characters have like loved ones die because of all the climate change, which is just that entire premise is quite interesting. But then there's this new kind of person here who essentially wants, he's like a kingpin, essentially like a dystopian-y kind of era. Like think of like just, yeah, everything's gone to shit in a handbag now. The cities are just kind of like shantied together at this point. No one really knows who's in charge or what's going on. But this like guy comes in with like money and ability to get food and all that stuff, which is another interesting thing in this book where they go 2 different time periods and bring back food to the current time period that doesn't have a ton of food. It's just very interesting. But the dude's like the kingpin, and he's like, I want to find out where I should invest my money. And it was another thing that's like, oh yeah, if you could do time control, like would you invest in Bitcoin right now, or would you like cash out of your stocks or something like that if you knew that it was like this is your time, this is your peak. It's just very interesting cast, and I feel like I enjoyed this one's plot a whole lot more, whereas the first one I feel like it didn't have so much plot as much as the characters being the focus. So the characters are still there. They're a bit more developed, but they actually do a whole lot more, I feel like, in this book. I also read The Gentlewoman's Guide to Murder by Victoria Hamilton, I think it was, and oh, this book. It randomly just showed up when I was browsing through my library's Overdrive, and I was like, that cover looks kind of cool. And then I looked it up, and I was like, wow, it has like 3.1 stars on Goodreads. It's not a good start. Whatever, screw it. There's like one person in line, I'll just place a hold and I'll read it. Like, it's an audiobook. I'm not wasting money on it. Worst comes to worst, I get a couple chapters in and I find it's not worth my time. That's fine, then I would do that. So I read it. It was so worth my time. I don't understand how that has such a 3.1 rating. I have no idea who's doing the rating on that. I don't know if there was a flush of 1 stars at the beginning because it's Goodreads and people just do that all the time. But it's as if take the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile ring with Prince Andrew and just put it a couple centuries back. And our main character is in like this Victorian era, and she is focusing all her time on finding men who are essentially using their servants, especially kid servants, for their physical desires, while those children are like the maids and the cleaners or whatever. So it's, people will communicate with them like, yo, this Duke is like touching his kid servant or whatever. So she's like, okay, and then she goes and saves the kid and finds them a safe place. And then they're trying to figure out exactly who's in charge of this ring, where they're getting the kids from, and they're all orphans. At-risk kids. And they're trying to figure out, okay, like exactly where's the funding coming from, what orphanages, are they doing this knowingly? And then specifically the one that it starts off with her getting a kid away from a certain gentleman, and that gentleman gets murdered that night. And it's, who did that? Is it the guy who he was buying from? Is he the guy that's buying from? Is it connected to this ring? Is this like a whole other thing that we could stop these people? But yeah, I think in the end, like when she starts connecting the dots, she's a very evidence-based person. So like a lot of these people, because she is like in the upper classes, she knows all these people potentially who she thinks are doing that. And she's watching them all like a hawk. She's not getting them like, oh, I knew this man when I was younger, and like he was like, oh, like he gave me that lollipop, so he can't be a bad person because he was good to me as a kid. No, it's just like kind of just watching everyone. It's really entertaining, really interesting. She has a couple helpers, but like I'm really curious to see what's going to go happen next. Because we start pivoting and taking on like this new mystery in the next book, whatever that does come out. It was a delightfully surprising read. It's literally just like if we took Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew and put them at 200 years-ish ago and treated them like the trash that they are and got down to the pedophile ring that they ran, because let's be real, Epstein didn't kill himself and Prince Andrew is absolutely a creep. I read Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu in like a single day, and that is easily my favorite Marie Lu book I've ever read. Ever. So I feel like in the past 2 videos I've said it's about Back because it's called Back. It's not. I know that like I had read the summary before. Like I thought it was maybe just like a musical connection pun, but no. Okay, so it is about the sister of Mozart, and the ending author note is especially interesting. I really recommend reading that because it gives a little bit more light to the historical stuff. But it's kind of this weird balancing that I feel, it's a balancing act that I feel like connected a lot to how The Light Between Worlds by Laura Weymouth did this balancing act of blending the history and the fantasy, that you're like, I'm not sure if it's real or if it's like totally made up in the kids' minds, you know? So the main character is the older brother of Mozart, the older sister of Mozart, and she's a musical prodigy, but because of the times, her father lets her only really perform essentially as a part of like with her brother. So they start touring as musical prodigies all over the continent, and in their free time, in their spare time, they've made this magical kingdom in their head called the Kingdom of Back. And they go there to like explore. It's like a Narnia kind of mental situation. But there's a character there, and it ties to this story of like an ogre and like a family like split apart that they tell kind of at the beginning in the real world. It's very interesting watching that story connect, which is why you're like, but is it fantasy? Or like, is this all made up? Or like, is this world sort of magical, or what is happening? And she's struggling an awful lot. This book doesn't shy away with the role of women, and it really does at the end kind of come to this thing of like, think of all the things of value that we could have had that we've lost because we didn't let women write or compose or invent or learn science, and all of these things this world could have had if we gave everyone the opportunity, rich, poor, especially in this one, genders and sexes, gave them the opportunity to do what they wanted to do and what their skill was. She was a real person, that there is kind of some evidence that some of Mozart's work was actually her work, but we just took it and put his name on it because of the time period, and so we don't know if there's any of her work surviving anymore. So it was just a very, very, very interesting topic. I feel like just cover, and then the fantasy I feel is like where the climax and the plot kind of weaves up and down. But I was just more interested, which it was interesting and fun to read, but I was more interested in the history of it an awful lot. I think my only like beef with it at the end, we see like where she is and where Mozart is, and they're just like, oh, and she's married with kids or whatever, because like that's what women had to do at the time. But they don't say who she's married to, and I'm like, but you led this like, there's this like whole sexual potential like romance thing going on, and then that's never kind of like, is it that dude or not? Like you don't have to give me this full like life story of them getting married, but like just let me know, is that the dude or is it someone else, like a total stranger, or was that guy what was that guy used? Was he completely useless then otherwise? I am so wonderful, lucky, blessed. My friend Meg and Emily both said that they have a copy of the Owl Crate exclusive, The Kingdom of Back, which is a beautiful copy. The regular one in store is so basic, I don't really want that one, but the beautiful copy, I really, really want that one. It has foiled and sprayed edges and whatever, or I don't know if it's sprayed edges, but it has foiled and glossed and lifted and all that stuff. So whichever one sends it to me first, I'm getting it from them. I'm very excited whenever that does come to put on my shelf. I'm absolutely going to be rereading this every once in a while. That'll be a book I think I can substitute in when I'm like, I should probably stop rereading The Light Between Worlds every couple months. I also picked up Bonds of Brass by Emily Skrutsky? I'm not sure if that's how you say it. I hope that is. Sorry, girl. Skrutsky. It is I think it's technically a new adult or an adult sci-fi. And it's set in this really interesting, it reminds me of a lot of different sci-fis that I read, like, politically. That this world has had, like, an upheaval, and there's, like, the haves and the have-nots, and the people that are, like, in power, and the people who were in power, and the people who are like kind of trying to rebuild their shit, and the poor, and all these people. So they're all at this like essential like academy, and our main character is like leading his squad or whatever, and finds out, you know, he's potentially someone on his squad. All of a sudden his squad like interns during like a practice run or something like that. All of a sudden they start like attacking inside the squad. They're like, what the fuck's going on? And then we find out, oh, someone is not who they say they are. They're actually like an heir to like this throne thing. And then there's this like bisexual romance between these two dudes that is just like freaking, I really liked that. But I feel like I did struggle that like the romance was so centered to the plot. Not that the romance was bad, but that like the way that it was written, like the actual like peak moments that I feel like were like, that could have been those like, oh my god, like the space battle thing or whatever, took a back seat in how they were written and how they were highlighted. I feel like we were more just like, okay, but we'll go back to the romance. But okay, yeah. I mean, like we did the space thing, but come back to the romance here. So I feel like it did struggle with, the romance shouldn't have been eccentric, because it kind of took over the plot itself. But other than that, I enjoyed it. I liked the cast. I liked the characters. The political conflict isn't super like complex, which I appreciated in sci-fi, because sometimes they can just get too big with all the weird names and like galaxies and everything like that. I'm really curious to see where the rest of the trilogy is going to go, for sure. I also did a reread of Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan, and then literally like my copy of The Ruthless Gods that I've had on hold showed up in my on my phone being like, hey, I'm ready for you to borrow me. So that's coming up very, very soon. But yeah, so Ruthless Wicked Saints, first book in the Something Unholy something trilogy or something like that. But it's very Grisha versus influence, very Eastern European. The ending is so good. I'm so trash for this like Darkling character in here. It's so good. So good. And I'm excited to read Ruthless Gods. And I think the last book that I finished this week was House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, which is, oh my god, the best book I've like ever read. It's just so good. Oh, it's so whimsical. It gave me like Nevernight whimsy. Like, oh my god. It is somehow confusingly both a children's and an adult book, which I didn't think was possible. And like, it's just, it's so good. This dude is, he works for like the Department of Magical Children, and he investigates like the orphanages where they're at. And so he gets handpicked and sent to this one, on this very like secluded island, shows up, and like one of the kids is like in the files is like, oh, he's Lucifer. Good luck with that. And so he meets this cast of kids at the orphanage. He meets the gentleman that's running the orphanage, and like they are really good people, but then they have the town who's very like bigoted against these kids with the powers, and like they're all evil, so they're gonna all try and come at us. So there's just this like kind of conflict between them, and but it's just so whimsical. The guy's very like analytical, like he's like does everything by the books, and you can see him kind of slowly like become an actual person and interact with the kids as the book goes on. It's so whimsical. It has a plot, it has a cast, but it is so just mellow. It is the mellowest book I have ever read. It is a book at this time period that we all fucking need. I loved the characters, I loved the cast, I loved the conflict. It wasn't super deep, but it was a good message. It was morally uplifting. I felt good the whole time. The kids are so damn cute, and I don't even like kids most of the time. So like, Praise be. Oh, and then like the main character is like, there's a male-male romance. It's really, really cute and sweet. So, highly recommend this book. I've heard absolutely nothing about it. I just by fluke found it when I was browsing on like Goodreads or something like that, and I was like, okay, well, I'll get it from my library because it has queer rep, so like whatever. And then I read it, and oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. I need more people to read it so I can talk and just fangirl about how the whimsicalness of this shit. And I think on that note, I think that's the last thing that I read. I'm currently in the middle of Crazy Rich Asians. Next week, I'm hoping to get Thorn done. I started working on Crescent City. I just haven't finished it. It's just a big beast of a book. I think after Crazy Rich, I want to get Ruthless Gods done this week too. So, and Wicked As You Wish. I want to at least try that one. So, I have quite a few books that I'm really excited to read this next week too. So, yeah. That is this week's wrap up. If you read any of these, let me know your thoughts. If you didn't read any of these, tell me what you read this week. I'd love to hear it. Also, please read House in the Cerulean Sea. I need to talk to someone about it.